عدد على عدد كل يوم عم نزيد، شو فايدة الكترة والحرية مش بالإيد. من يوم ما وعيت وأنا بنت هاي البلاد، بكى أطفال وبسمات أولاد. الأرض صابة أسود خيم علينا حداد، بطلنا نعد أحياء صرنا نعد أموات. وأنا بقول بكفي عاد، بدي أمسك قدري بكفي عاد.
Salam, معكم Dalal, and this is episode 24 of the Vegans for Palestine podcast. In Arabic, Ahlan wa Sahlan is often translated as welcome, but its meaning runs deeper. It carries a sense of being received with warmth, ease, and as part of the family. For Palestinians, hospitality is not just a social nicety. Palestinian anthropologist Nasser Abu Farha explains that in Palestine, hospitality goes far beyond simple manners. It functions as a vital way of asserting identity, belonging, and dignity in the face of ongoing hardship. In this episode, Nada and Rayan explore hospitality through a Palestinian vegan lens. They reflect on what it means to navigate a collectivist culture shaped by long-standing traditions and expectations, and how these continue to evolve today. Whilst Nada reflects on motherhood and her vegan journey, their conversation moves through the beauty, the tensions, and the resilience embedded in Palestinian hospitality. Enjoy this one.
My name is Nada. I've been vegan for many years. I think it's going on 8 years, but I have been on and off since I was a child. I totally believe in this philosophy of like the blank slate, the tabula rasa, that maybe are all vegans growing up, because this idea was in me as a child. And when I see videos of children or my interactions with children, and as a relatively new mother, the idea of veganism is just something that makes sense to me, to my family, and to the children around me. So that's my approach to veganism. And yeah, I work as an accountant by day, but in my free time now, I'm learning embroidery now, but I also do other fun things like reading and drawing.
You did mention that in some ways you were vegan when you were younger.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a bit more about that?
Yeah, I mean, I remember I would either come across a video when I was younger of either the baby chicks going through shredders, or seeing just, even in real life, it didn't have to be video, seeing the sacrifices that were done on Eid, just the blood spilling out, seeing the resistance of the animals, seeing the sadness in their eyes, and then kind of, I guess, reflecting on the practice and what we were doing, the juxtaposition of people who are close to me, who I saw as gentle figures, or people who played with us, like my grandfathers or my uncles, kill a being in front of me. These were really like pivotal moments of, is this right? Is this something that I want to participate in? So I would have a shock moment and then kind of announce that I'm not eating meat or anything. And my family thought that it was a phase. It's something that will go. And at that time it did, because an 8-year-old, a 12-year-old can only survive on like French fries and hummus for, a certain amount of time. But the more older I got, I felt I was always coming back to veganism, whether it was coming across a Carol Adams book or just going out to lunch with friends, and I would naturally gravitate to the vegan or the vegetarian option. Is just where life has ultimately led me. And now that I'm a mother of a 2-year-old, I've had the opportunity and the privilege to actively be involved in this fresh new life. And it's just the idea that makes sense to me. I'm able to kind of be creative, and it doesn't even have to be super creative for my kid. Like I can make like a vegan Snickers bar from dates and tahini, ice cream, but out of frozen fruit. And it's been a way for me to kind of live out the vegan childhood that I wanted to have, but also being able to continue being vegan and not letting excuses of accessibility or other things kind of get in my way. I just want to add that it's something I'm committed to for my child, that she at least doesn't think that, oh, my mom was vegan and she fed me a rice of just like potatoes and like veggies, like this raw vegan diet or something that was very restrictive. But I am using the opportunity also to share with her, like to share with her the abundance and the beauty and everything that can be made vegan and can be made without harming others.
Can you tell me about what it's like to be a vegan mother in Palestine?
Being a Palestinian vegan mother in Palestine, I'll say there's definitely the fact that we are a collectivist and hospitable culture. And anybody who's been to Palestine or met a Palestinian knows that our social gatherings revolve around food. And we love to feed our guests, and it's a form, expression of love for us. So you want to kind of walk a fine line when you're being offered food to not maybe offend somebody who's put their love and labor into a meal to share with you, and you're here questioning the ingredient. They might interpret it as questioning their intentions. So that's definitely something with the culture that I am walking the fine line, or that I struggle with. But in terms of the motherhood, I will say, I'm spending naturally more time in the house. I'm learning a lot other moms on how they prepare for their children. And I haven't even learned entirely from vegan moms. I've learned from mothers who just want cleaner ingredients for their kids, or want their kids to just eat at home more often. Maybe they're on a budget. Maybe they live in parts of the world where like supermarkets are not that accessible. So they have to like batch cook for the whole week. And I've learned tips and tricks, and I've picked up recipes that stuck with my family. And yeah, that's how I've learned with the motherhood aspect. But I don't have difficulties maybe cooking and preparing for my child as much as the pressure comes from the outside of people questioning and people giving their opinions. And we like to do that, I'll say, as a people. And it has its pros, but it also has its cons when you kind of steer away from tradition or status quo.
Hospitality is important to us. It's culturally embedded in who we are as Palestinians. And I've noticed within Palestinian communities, even those that have nothing will be hospitable.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen a lot of the most generous, hospitable people surviving the genocide in Gaza with nothing, but they'll make a huge lentil stew with their remaining ingredients. And that fine line, for me as a Palestinian vegan, I've had to navigate that as well. I think hospitality is part of who we are. It's important to articulate that.
Yeah, something for me is I visited friends who were coming from abroad. They were non-vegans, but something as a mother now, before it was fine, if I needed to skip a meal or if I needed to just snack on something. But now as a mother, I'm coming prepared to people's houses. So I'll come in with some dates, or I'll come in with either something that I've baked. So that way it's less of a like, I don't want to eat, or I'm fasting, and it comes off as less pretentious somehow to Palestinians. And it's more like, oh yeah, I'm here to share, look what I've made. And a lot of times other people's children or even other people will inquire about what I've made, or what is this, or oh my god, it tastes just like Bounty, or it tastes just like an omelet, or it tastes just like something else that is not vegan. And I've noticed it is like a nice form of outreach, and it also makes sure that everybody has something to eat, no feelings are hurt, and yeah, people learn something new about veganism.
I wonder if it's fair to say living Palestinian and vegan within Palestinian communities, whether at home or in the diaspora, whether you develop a habit where people in the community are hospitable, because when they visit you, you're able to feed them, especially if they're non-vegan, because non-vegans usually can consume vegan food. And as you and I both know, Palestinian food is largely vegan.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I wonder whether Palestinian vegans, whether we develop subconscious habits where if we're going over someone's home, we let them know well in advance that we are vegan, that we can't have lahma, we can't have halib, we can't have not even asal. And
Mhm.
we just develop these habits because we know how hospitality means so much culturally. Yeah, I mean, growing up in Palestinian households, visiting Palestinian families, we know that there is a protocol of hospitality whereby you accept something, but you don't need to consume it there. I think you and I and every other Palestinian vegan knows that when we visit someone's home, if they've cooked dead animals or lahma or something, if they've cooked jaj mahshi, which means a stuffed chicken for us,
Mhm.
we'd probably feel, a part of us would feel that we're navigating our culture of hospitality, but also our vegan values. We're mediating between the both by the sounds of it. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, it definitely is mediating. I think there are different types of people, right? There are people who know that you've been vegan for many years and they can be adamant, but there are also people who just, if it's the first time you're seeing them, yeah, it can be like a difficult line to balance. So I do give people a heads up. I do sometimes, maybe if it's an older person, and if I'm going to a place with family, I'll have just my family communicate saying, oh, by the way, Nada's coming, or Nada and her family are coming. Just please make sure there's like some rice and salad on the side, or things like that. But yeah, everybody visiting, always, I guess, having a sense of responsibility for other people. And you can't enter somebody's house and leave hungry. That's just considered rude in our culture.
I never thought of it that way, but that is so true. As
Mhm.
in, it's rude to be the guest who's invited to someone's home and to leave hungry. It's almost like the host gets enjoyment out of providing ahwa, coffee, tea, um,
Mhm.
soft drink, whatever. But at the same time, especially if you're visiting friends and you're right, they actually get to know you. So with me as an example, they know, oh yeah, Rayan's vegan, so he'll just have the hummus at this particular gathering. Yeah, and the falafel or whatever. Yeah, I suppose there's that knowledge, that sort of, how can I put this? There's that respect, but at the same time, the guest also has I don't want to call it a responsibility, but it's almost like a role whereby they accept a cup or a can of soft drink, but it doesn't mean they have to consume it. But it's about
Mhm.
accepting hospitality, making yourself feel at home. If I can just also add this quickly,
Mhm.
and then we've got to turn back to you because this is, we're here to hear
Yeah.
from you. The listeners have had enough of Rayan, as I said to you before. What's really important to acknowledge is how literate that
Mhm.
communities have of one another. So, as an example, during the Ramadan, as a Palestinian Christian, when I was younger, I was doing a lot of English tutoring here and there. And I'd go to people's homes tutoring their children. And in the midst of Ramadan, while everyone was fasting, they'd be offering me food. And on the one hand, I'd be like, la, come on, like haram, like I am not here to eat and, torment all of you fasting. But at the same time, I had an obligation to. And at the same time, if it was back when I was non-vegan, if I was doing the Siyam al-Kabir or the Orthodox fast, it's almost like they had knowledge of, okay, well, we're not going to give you chocolate because chocolate has milk in it, because back then that was the only sort that you could get.
Mhm.
We'll give you fruit or fawakia, or if that makes sense. That's what I'm also finding being Palestinian vegan and navigating Palestinian hospitality.
I want to add a footnote to this conversation, that this negotiation, I only do it when I am going to people who are very distant from me, or I would consider distant from me. If I'm going by like my mom's friend, or I'm going to like a second cousin to celebrate something, or somebody had a health crisis, I will do the negotiations there. But if I'm going to a non-vegan friend or acquaintance who knows about my beliefs, it's non-negotiable. I would not even eat if there is no options. I make it very clear. Even if there is like a piece of like a carcass or a pieces of meat, I will not eat at tables of people who I know who are doing this. This is non-negotiable. This negotiation only occurs if I am like at the neighbor's son's wedding, and there is meat on the tables, and I will just have the rice. But I will not eat plain rice, or I will not settle for just the batata and the hummus if I'm going by people who know who I am and know who my beliefs are.
I like that.
Mhm.
Ooh, I need to be more like you. I need to be more assertive. But in my case, if Rayan was like that, I'd be called a total pain, a wejaras in my community. Well, I actually already am a wejaras, but that's another story. You know, we've talked about hummus. Sorry, we've talked about hummus and batata or hummus and fries quite a bit. Do you reckon they're
Mhm.
a good combination?
Together, probably not, no.
Yeah.
But if you have other things, maybe if you have like the shatta, the hot sauce, or like the green or the red one, I think it could work. I also put batata in my falafel, so I like how it tastes. I know some people are more traditionalist with that, and they're like, no, it doesn't belong, but I like it.
Can we take a moment to appreciate Arab hospitality? It's unlike anything I've ever experienced.
Hi, I'm Sarah. I'm a Presbyterian pastor, and I just got back from Palestine. I want to tell you a story about it.
I had to do this video. It's a great story, and it has to do with Palestinian hospitality.
During my recent trip to Jordan and Palestine, I was struck by how deeply kindness is woven into the culture.
Pretty much every single time we visited, they brought out cookies, water, tea, and coffee, and were like, please help yourself, make yourself at home. Our space is your space.
Hospitality here isn't just a gesture, it's a way of life. It's humbling, really. The warmth and love I receive from strangers who are now friends reminded me of how powerful human connection can be.
While that in and of itself is very hospitable and very kind, it really hit home with me the cost of this kind of hospitality.
And just the fact that they invited us in the house, sat us down, would have probably started preparing like tea or coffee for us, maybe even a meal if we hadn't eaten, but it's hilarious that happened like that.
You see, for Palestinians living in occupied territories, water is not something that's easy to come by. For Palestinians, their water is more often than not off than it is on. And that's because Israel can arbitrarily turn off their water at any point, for any reason, for any length.
I just want to say I love our culture, besides the hospitality of it. But I just went to a wedding, not a wedding, but like where someone courts to ask for the hand of the girl, and the whole formal process of it is just beautiful. I love everything about our culture. So that's all I had to say. Free Palestine, from the river to the sea.
So there's a Palestinian anthropologist by the name of Nasser Abu Farha, and he wrote that hospitality for Palestinians is not a matter of social etiquette in Palestine. It is a core mechanism for affirming identity, belonging, and dignity under siege. In his ethnographic work, he emphasizes more on how Palestinians use hospitality to restore order and express social control in contexts where they are otherwise stripped of their political autonomy. In other words, when borders are controlled, homes demolished, and public spaces militarized, the act of offering tea becomes a small but meaningful declaration of agency to them. The foundation of this practice lies in Arab cultural values, like in Palestinian society, a guest must be received and treated with honor even during or throughout personal hardship. These expectations are not just circumstantial, they remain in place regardless of whether the host lives in a stable home or a temporary shelter, which is what you and I talked about before in terms of what we've seen in Gaza, people living in tents with absolutely nothing, still being hospitable. And I wonder whether for Palestinians, our hospitality is our existence, because whilst we're being dispossessed, whilst we're being bombed, Palestinian men are being annihilated, Palestinian women are being imprisoned, tortured, raped Palestinian children are also experiencing the same things. The world is watching and doing nothing. I wonder whether for us, our affirmation of hospitality is an affirmation of being Palestinian.
I mean, I want to agree with you. I will say, however, that the hospitality extends outside of Palestine, right? Specifically in Bilad al-Sham, all the way to North Africa, West Asia as well. So for sure, there is something innate in our culture, and with the political situation, I'm trying to see how it ties in. But yes, I mean, I've seen it. It was just Ramadan, right? And this happens every year. Well, I don't know if you have been here in Ramadan, but that 1 hour, 2 hours before Adhan, there is a lot of traffic. There's, let alone like the closures and the increase of the iron gates and the checkpoints that we have witnessed the past year. It's just going to have we're going to have natural traffic regardless, because you have many of the population all need to be home or need to be at one place at one specific time. And what we will see is Christian Palestinians standing in the streets, giving out dates and water to people who will not make it by the time it's time to break their fast. So that is something that I see like as a form of maybe like a political resilience or a political stance that, you know, as you said, like you are a Palestinian Christian, but you do not have to fast. It's like maybe in a Western country, you could say, well, that's not my business, or that's their problem. They decided to fast. They would say it's their problem as individuals, but kind of we all begin to carry this burden and we carry this responsibility. And back to the hospitality times there, the hospitality conversation is, I've seen some of my friends' mothers like call me a few times before I go to their house, like, can you eat this? Or can you eat this? Or are you sure you could eat this? Or what if I combine this and this with this work? So I can definitely see how the idea of responsibility for other people can intersect with our hospitality. And of course, our responsibility with other people will just magnify when we're living in such a context.
That was well said. And absolutely, I agree with you. In terms of identifying hospitality, of course, there's nothing specifically Palestinian about hospitality, because across the Arab world, across West Asia, and parts of Africa, it's actually the standard norm. So it's one thing to challenge the Western hegemonic ideals of what is hospitality. But though I think for you and I, we are living Palestinian in a time where the world is dedicated to our erasure, where it's actively happening within our homeland, where in the diaspora, if we articulate our Palestinian identity, depending on where we are often silenced, we are ridiculed, we are basically reminded that our existence makes our colonizers feel uncomfortable. And that's a mild way of putting it. So I just think that, yeah, what you said before was really important to acknowledge. Practicing our hospitality, which is a continuation of our culture. Because it wasn't as though the Zionist colonization began and then all of a sudden Palestinians, we thought, you know what, whilst we're being annihilated, let's be hospitable. I mean, like a lot of our grandparents, Palestinian hospitality is much older than the state of Israel itself. But in the same token, we've been able to continue that cultural practice despite the odds against us, despite the attempts to annihilate us.
Yeah, for sure. I guess it didn't break our culture and our identity.
If you pick up any Palestinian cookbook, and I think Dalal and I have actually done this, but if you pick up any Palestinian cookbook, it's almost like, first of all, the Palestinian chefs know that there's going to be a large non-Palestinian audience out there who purchase the book. And then as a result, they do talk about cultural norms of hospitality. A lot of these cookbooks, what they all have in common is that they talk about how food holds a special place in Palestinian culture. First off, because we didn't appropriate it. Second of all, because it's older, Palestinian food is older than the state of Israel, but also because in traditional Palestinian homes, before the age of the internet, before modern technologies in terms of the way that people across the globe are connected, our grandparents and great-grandparents and so forth really only knew Palestinian cuisine. And so I do notice that in telling the story of hospitality and what's passed down from one generation to another, and how a lot of foods have began to symbolize resilience and the spirit of Palestinian people, even in these cookbooks, the herbs are talked about in ways that complement hospitality. So, I've even read somewhere that, salt symbolizes hospitality, olive oil, za'atar, sumac, tahini, as you actually rightly mentioned before. Sorry, we didn't talk about it in that regard. You talked about it in relation to a
Recipe.
yes.
Yeah. It's something that it just made me think is just for a non-Palestinian is the hospitality. Maybe they see it just with our food. Like if they enter our house, like if I've had, when I lived in the United States, I had friends come over for what they thought was like a pizza dinner, and they would expect pizza, and my mom has a whole spread that can feed them and their families. But just sometimes this is just so funny to me, just how ridiculous our hospitality can get. Is if you compliment somebody on maybe their shirt, sometimes you may have to fight somebody for them to keep their shirt on and not give it to you. You can compliment somebody and say that this actually happened when I was living in New Jersey with my family, and we were living in a suburb, and every suburb in the US, you have to have your own garbage can that you bring to the curb for the garbage men to put it in the truck and return it. And my mom gets this new garbage can. It's very big, but it's nice, I will say. And our neighbor tells us, what a nice garbage can. And my mom says, have it. And the guy's like, why would I want your garbage can? But my mom is just like, oh, but you like it so much, you should take it. But this is just, I guess, an example of how ridiculous it can get. So when you put it as you're entering someone's house, when you compare it to entering someone's house and being offered maybe like a cheese pastry or being offered a plate of rice and meat, this just becomes so even minuscule to how extensive Palestinian hospitality can be.
Oh my God, you're right. You've just given me flashbacks to my childhood. Living Palestinian also means that you have cousins with children your age, right?
Yeah.
Or you have uncles who are younger than you, uncles and aunties, I should say, and you also have lots and lots of cousins. I think I've got about 95 first cousins if I was to count up. And we're considered a small Palestinian family. But I remember I complimented someone on a backpack, or I think in America, what's called a book bag. And I did the mistake of saying, where can I get one?
Nope.
Yeah, you know what happened.
It's on your back instantly.
It's right here. It's right here in the background. It's actually on the floor 10, 15 years later. It's still with me. And I've realized that's how I got one of my most beloved masbahas, or my rosary beads, again, through that process. So it means that, being a diaspora Palestinian, it means that family lives all over the world, but I have to travel quite a few hours to see family. A side note, that's a good thing and a bad thing. But I will be mindful that when I do come across them, I'm going to be very careful what I say. But at the same time, I find myself guilty of doing those things, because even with my friends, if they've tried something and they really, really enjoy a particular, cuisine, like as an example, I made zahra, or I think what in the other parts of the Arab world is called, cauliflower. One of my really, really good friends loves Palestinian-style fried cauliflower. And now subconsciously, every time they visit, I make it. And they find it really fascinating that every time they come to my house, they know that there'll be fried zahra.
Yeah, the hospitality. It's definitely something that makes us unique, and it really makes you feel taken care of. It makes you feel like you're not alone, and anywhere you go in the world as a Palestinian, if there's another Palestinian, you have family.
It sounds like you have spent some time in the diaspora, and as we all know, for diaspora Palestinians, returning home it's not an easy process as it would be for other diaspora populations out there. So,
Of course.
as an example, members of the Irish diaspora, in most cases, are able to go home. Member of the Lebanese diaspora are able to go home.
Yeah.
But when it comes to our lot, when it comes to Palestinians, we have to ask a settler colonial society filled up with people from outside of Palestine whether we're allowed to enter our own homelands, whilst people who identify themselves as being chosen, whatever that means, are able to walk on our ancestral lands even though their ancestors come from other parts of the world.
I will say I think about this a lot, about the privilege of living here when you think of how many people have born and died waiting to come live here, or just even breathe its air, or visit their ancestors' home, or maybe even their own home, because there are many people still alive who are born here and not able to return back. And as a vegan, a lot of times it gets frustrating because I joke that we are living like the maybe vegan hippies of the 80s in the US and the UK, right? We're eating a lot of rice and beans. We eat modified restaurant meals at very specific places. We can't even get maybe a whole, like a complete menu item in most places. And most of the times we're eating at home and we're eating with other vegans. And I multiply this inconvenience across other things. That life here doesn't have conveniences that it does, not just in the West, but maybe just in other parts of the Middle East, in other parts of Palestine. But when you think about the price and responsibility you have of being here, the problem of not eating out just becomes so minuscule. And this is even without the context of the genocide that we have seen in the past 3 years, where we have seen people eat dog food, and we have seen people eat bird food and make bread out of that. Or we have seen people share their food with street cats and dogs. And with this context, and just the context of our whole history and how tragic it is, and the price that Palestinians continue to pay, because I've lived in the diaspora and I know that there aren't daily threats to your life to the extent that it is here. There isn't a lot of daily fears and anxiety, but I will say that I will challenge that, because I see a lot of people who have either committed their lives to Palestine without seeing it, with only stories and virtual communication. And then there's also just people who live here and they go to study abroad. It could be like a quick master's program. Or I remember just being on a trip with my friends one summer and a massacre happens, or being on a trip and something happens and your heart is here, your heart is back home, and it's always with you.
You make some really good points about navigating diaspora life and going back home, and seeing the differences and the reality that living Palestinian in Palestine is where the actual annihilation attempts are there for you to witness, whereas a lot of us in the diaspora, we witness it on our social media devices, much the same way that the world does.
Yeah, and there's a lot of guilt with that. And, even just being in Palestine outside of Gaza, you have this guilt. I'm sure it carries with other people, maybe even non-Palestinians, I'm sure carry this guilt. We've seen the genocides also in Sudan. We've seen it in Congo, and there's just a lot of guilt and a lot of people questioning why is my life more important, or why is my life more safer or more privileged than others? Under what basis is that? And again, as a vegan, you're going to ask yourself, and also the animals, why is my cat or my dog at home, with food and showers and hugs and veterinary care, and I will do anything in my power to make sure that my cat and dogs are just living the longest, most comfortable life, and other animals are not afforded that.
ضب عيونك هذا النهد إلي، ضب إيديك هذا الفخذ إلي، ضب ملاحظاتك شعر الإيدين وشعر تحت الأباط بس إلي، سيطر على تعابير وجهك هدول الكم إكسترا كيلو إلي، السيلوليت إلي، تشققات الجلد علامات الحمل بس إلي، الشاب التواليل الشمات اللي وراك الحبوب كله بس إلي، هذا المطبخ مش بس إلي، بس هذا الزيت هذا الزعتر والعكوب إلي، بشرة القمحية إلي، وهاي العيون إلي، لأول مرة بشوف عيوني طريق عيوني. 42 200 120 على 136 42 مليون مرة تاجروا في جسدي، 200 مليون مرة ختنوني وأخذوا مسؤولية على جسدي، 120 مليون مرة اغتصبوا جسدي، 136 مليون ولادة بالسنة، وهاي الحياة بس من جسدي.
You know, for me, it's that our focus on the hospitality, I always thought that Palestinians are so stubborn, Palestinians are so close-minded, but just going off this like one comment and being like, no, this is like innate in who we are. There are so many positives. I remember when I lived in the US, and if I like was in between apartments and I needed a place to stay, it was almost impossible, right? Like to ask a very close friend, because they consider it intrusive to come and stay in their place. But when I am in Palestine, I know, if my house burns down, God forbid, if I am anywhere there, I could just knock on any door probably and say, hi, can I sleep here on your couch for a night? And they'll be like, yeah, come. It's like no questions asked. I don't even have to be friends with them. So I definitely now see it. This gave me like an optimistic and beautiful approach to our culture.
I know that as Palestinians, whenever we produce something, whether it be a cookbook, whether it be a show, if we're producing a film, any form of artworks, or even a lecture, we always have to keep in mind the Western gaze. And I hope one day that stops being the default, whereby we are able to tell our own stories, discuss our own elements of culture, without having to respond to a series of Orientalist tropes that we have to battle. No, yeah, go on.
Sorry, I don't even know who Sabrina Carpenter is, but apparently she laughed at someone doing a zaghruta, or she made fun of it. I can't do the zaghruta, but it's an elevation to celebrate, that's done at weddings, it's done at graduations, and part of the discourse was that what do we need? Like, why do we want Sabrina Carpenter to like us? Like, ask yourself, has she said anything for Palestinians in the past 3 years? These are just shallow Western people whose views and way of life is contradictory to you and your existence. So yeah, this like Western gaze and view of like, we want these people to like us, like, why?
That's a really, really important point. Yeah, when that happens, I just thought to myself, well, if she says, I don't like it, we can respond, well, we don't like you. We don't have to explain that at weddings, at christenings, at celebrations, graduations, that women within our community engage in a process of or whatever the correct term is, of chanting. That's, like, we don't owe her an explanation. It should have been, okay, the moment she said, I don't like it, our response should have been, well, we don't like you.
It could have been much ruder.
Exactly. And I'm being, because we've just met, I'm watching what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I can't even believe that I've even been told that there are Arabs out there that are very compassionate and saying, okay, well, she's entitled to her opinion. I don't care about her opinion. بهمنيش والله بهمنيش. يعني, my culture doesn't exist, so that way, whatever her name is, Sabrina Carpenter, can say, I like that, I don't like that. did mention that you are a mother, and being a Palestinian mother who's vegan, navigating community hospitality is its own journey. What sorts of things about Palestinian hospitality would you want to pass on to your daughter?
Oh, this is definitely a question I didn't without trying to sound like, oh, I want to curate my daughter like this to be this and this. Right away, I want her to decide for herself who she wants to be. That's an important part. That I'm there to support her more than I'm there to maybe decide what I want for her. But definitely, in terms of Palestinian hospitality, I would love for her to have this positive relation to Palestinian hospitality and be able to use it in a way that aligns with her values. I know we spoke about this, but again, I don't know if it was in and out of the recording, that you live far from your family, and it's a good and it's a bad thing. And with our collectivist society, it can be a good and a bad thing. It's common to have people over-involved in your life and over-involved in the way you dress and the way you practice your religion and the way where you choose to live and go. So I hope that she could take the positives with her. I hope that she could take the idea that she always has people to fall back on, that she always has a place to call home, that wherever it is, that there are friends, that she can build friends and meaningful connections with people who can be like family to her. And I hope she doesn't use these negative aspects to maybe be judgmental or to be exclusionary, that if someone doesn't fit the path that society or culture wants her to be, I don't want that to bring her down.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Nada, I know we've been talking for less than an hour, and this is the first time that you and I have actually spoken. I feel as though we know each other because of our conversation. I feel as though we've met before because we just have so much in common.
Thank you for having me.
Anytime, and I hope you come back.
Yeah, sure.
أهلا وسهلا.
أهلا فيك.
عدد على عدد كل يوم عم بنزيد، شوف فايدة الكترة والحرية مش بالإيد. من يوم ما وعيت وأنا بنت هاي البلاد، بكا أطفال وبسمة ولاد. الأرض ثوبها أسود خيم علينا حداد، بطلنا نعد أحياء صرنا نعد أموات. وأنا بقول بكفي عاد، بدي أمسك قدري بكفي بكفي عاد. فهمي ومش فهمي، عايشي ومش عايشي، البحر ميت أنا وحدي طايشي. مهتمي ومش مهتمي، عارفي ومش عارفي، طريق طويل أنا لساتني بمشي. بكفي عاد بكفي عاد بكفي عاد، وأنا ماسكة قدري بكفي بكفي عاد. بكفي عاد بكفي عاد، وأنا ماسكة قدري بكفي بكفي عاد. من عم بيعد من عم بيشد، من كياني عم بيحاول إنه يحد. مين عم يكتر ومين عم ينقص، من مصلحته إنه الإنسانية تفلس. من بعمل مصاري من هادم داري، من بهالحياة عم بحدد مصاري. من قطع وصالي من بعد حبابي، من إله الحق ينهبلي حلالي ومالي. مين متحكم ومين متحكم، اسمع صوت الأرض بتقوله بتتكلم.
and always will fully support Palestine. And I just felt the need to put that out there because a brand really tried to pay me to change my opinion today. That's not going to happen. You cannot buy my morals. They really wanted me to come online and be like, yeah, I'm actually okay with these innocent people these innocent children as well. Just so you all know, I support Palestine. In what actual right mind do you think that you can buy my morals? If you want to unfollow me because of this, that's fine.